All right, I want to take us now into solving equations involving more than one step or involving more than one operation. So to do that, I want to take us back to our model. So here's our model for an equation that's a little more involved. And what you'll notice is that on the left-hand side we have 9, and on the right-hand side we have 2 variables plus 3, or 2a plus 3. And remember, what I want to do is I want to find out the value of 1a, so I know what that's equal to. So to do that, I want to start off and I want to get the a's by themselves. So in this case, since it's 2a plus 3, I'm going to have to subtract 3 from the right-hand side. And if I do that, notice we're no longer balanced, so I have to also subtract 3 from the left-hand side. So now I have 2a is equal to 3. Or sorry, 2a is equal to 6. Try that again. So now I want to group the blocks because I don't want to know what 2a is, I want to know what 1a is. So I'm going to group these blocks into 2 equal groups. And if we do that, what we'll notice is we're dividing by 2 basically, and we get that 1a is equal to 3. So that means a is equal to 3. So let me close that up. Okay. So if I had to write an equation for this model, what we have on our left-hand side is 3 variable tiles, or 3 a's, plus 1, and that's equal to, if you count them, that's equal to 7. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the 1 so that I just have variables on the left-hand side. So if I get rid of 1 there, I've got to get rid of 1 there. Now to show that, I'm going to subtract 1, so I have 3 times a is equal to 6 now. So I want to group those into 3 groups, so divide by 3. I want to divide by 3 and divide by 3. So if I'm doing that, I'm making 1 group, 2 group, 3 groups. Each group has an a in it. Over on this side, each group would be equal to 2. So that means that 1a is equal to 2. Now, let's go and let's look at an equation without the model. So now, we'll deal with that one in a minute. So if I have this 2 times the variable minus 6 is equal to 8. So I'm going to undo, and I want to get the variable by itself. So the first thing I'm going to get rid of is that minus 6. And you'll notice that there's a pattern that I'm going to talk about here right away. But I'm going to get rid of that minus 6. And the opposite of minusing 6 would be adding 6. So I'm going to add 6 to the left-hand side. And so I've got to do it to the right-hand side. So if I do that, 2p minus 6 plus 6 is just 2p. 8 plus 6 is 14. Now, it's 2 times p, so the opposite of timesing by 2 is dividing by 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I'll get that 1p, or just p, is equal to 7. And if you wanted to check that, you could put it back into the original equation for p. And that's called verifying your equation. So if I do that, I would take the 2, and wherever the p was, I would put in 7. And subtract 6. Is that equal to 8? Well, if I work on this, 14 minus 6, does that equal 8? Sure enough, it does. So that's got to be the correct answer. So if you're ever asked to verify the equation, that's what we do. We plug in, and again, we stay on both sides, and we try to make sure that both sides are equal to each other. That's what we're trying to find. All right, take a look at this second one. If we look, we have negative 5 times the variable h plus 4, and that's equal to negative 6. So I want to get that negative 5h by itself first. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So positive 4 minus 4 gives me 0, so I'll just have negative 5h is equal to. Now negative 6 and negative 4, remember back to integers, negative 6 and negative 4, they're the same signs, and I'm adding or subtracting them. I would think about adding them. So a negative 6 and a negative 4, I have a negative 10. Now, it's negative 5 times h, so the opposite of timesing would be dividing by negative 5. And again, I divide by the negative 5, so I get a positive 1h is equal to negative 10 divided by negative 5 is positive 2. Now, there is a trick to this. And the trick is this. If you are what you'll notice is when you're doing your order of operations, you would start off, you would do brackets first, then you do exponents, then you do multiplication and division in the order they appear, addition and subtraction in the order they appear. That's when you're doing an expression or doing operations. When you're undoing, we're going to reverse that order of operations. So we're always going to undo this way. We're going to undo addition and subtraction first. Then we're going to undo multiplication and division. And it turns out later on, not in grade 9, but later on in grade 10 and 11, we'll undo exponents and brackets. So if I was to look at this equation, notice the variable, and we always worry about the side with the variable. It's been divided by 2, and then we subtract 3. Well, I'm going to get rid of the subtraction of 3 first, because I'm undoing. So I add 3 to both sides. And when I do that, 2 plus 3 is 5. Minus 3 plus 3 cancel out, and I get x divided by 2 is equal to 5. Now the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. So I'm going to make this 2 multiplied by 2. Remember, with this case, they cancel out, and I just get an x is equal to 10. So that's the types of questions I'm going to ask you to do on the next sheet, which I think I called sheet 3. Now in sheet 4, I go one step further. And if you look, now the sides look a little more complicated. But really what we're going to do is before we start solving, we're going to make both sides simple. Now in this one, the left-hand side is simple. But the right-hand side, I have a bunch of variables and numbers that I'm going to collect together. That's called collecting like terms. And if you remember back to your unit on algebra, if I have 1x and negative 3x, those go together, and I get negative 2x's. Right? A positive 3 and a positive 7, they are both positives. They go together. They give me plus 10. Now I'm ready to solve my equation. Okay, so we simplify first, then we solve. So we solve by undoing the addition first. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. I'll get negative 16 is equal to negative 2x. Right? The plus 10 minus 10 cancel out. Negative 2 times x, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. And I'll get positive 8 is equal to x. One more. So what happens when I have 2 bracket? Remember, that really means times. So I'm going to take that 2 and multiply it by both the t and the 1. So I'll get 2t minus 2 is equal to 12. So now I'm going to add 2 to both sides, because I undo the subtraction first. So I get 2t is equal to 14, and then I divide both sides by 2. And I'm going to get t is equal to 7. Okay? So now you're ready to try sheet 3 and sheet 4.